This chess piece represents me and you. So keep an eye on this, it's important.
Ce que je dis, c'est qu'être citoyen, c'est aussi accepter les devoirs qui vont avec cette citoyenneté. Et donc, quand on est citoyen, on doit accepter de remplir son devoir. Ensuite, oui, j'assume totalement, et c'est ce que nous faisons au fond depuis l'été dernier, on a une stratégie qui est simple, vacciner, vacciner, vacciner. Elle est européenne. Et donc on peut s'émouvoir sur des formes d'expression qui paraissent familières, que j'assume totalement. Moi, je m'émeus de la situation dans laquelle nous sommes, la vraie fracture du pays. Et là, quand certains font de leur liberté qui devient une irresponsabilité, un slogan, non seulement ils mettent en danger la vie des autres, mais ils restreignent la liberté des autres. Et ça, je ne peux pas l'accepter.
We're living in very dark times. January is a dark month. A month of dark thoughts. A month of dark deeds. This is my spot. This is my bench. My bench of contemplation. When I worry, I find myself here, at my bench, overlooking the Dordogne River. Each day the Dordogne waters wash away my footprints. It washes away my worries, my concerns. Isn't it good Norwegian wood. Isn't it good? Coresian wood. I think that's how the song goes. Chestnut wood. Sweet chestnut wood. It spits and crackles like no other wood would. Ashes to glass. Nothing cleans like ash on glass. Squeaky clean. Now all can be seen. Shush. Listen. Listen to me. Those worries and concerns won't wash away. There are shadows in the corners, dark shadows in all of the corners. Welcome to this altar. Welcome to my altar. It is here that we shall meet. It is here that we shall see out the blackness. It is here that we shall feel the seventh bell ring. Ring out. Ring out. I guess you've heard of the term to prep or to be a prepper. Somebody commented on my fire torch video yesterday, thanking me for some advice I gave him with regards to building one of these fire torches. And at the bottom of his comment, he mentioned the fact that this was another tool that he could equip himself with regards to his preparations for whatever. And it kind of got me thinking, really, because although I would never have classed myself as a prepper, I think in many ways I am. Now, a prepper prepares himself for some kind of catastrophe, some global event, some kind of Armageddon, be it a nuclear war, a meteor hitting the planet Earth and wiping out the majority of the population, or maybe the dead rising from the graveyards in the form of zombies. The situation that we're kind of in now globally with the COVID epidemic and other elements that seem to have been kind of slipped underneath or behind the epidemic, I find myself now in kind of a situation, or the beginning of a situation, that preppers have been kind of prepping for. And it's quite worrying. In fact, it's really worrying, to be absolutely honest. I mean, I think up until this point, it wasn't that obvious, but I think now, if you do read between the lines, if you kind of look beyond mainstream media and do some investigation yourself, you'll understand that COVID, although COVID was a real pandemic, I mean, I was ill from COVID, it's kind of been used as a bit of a tool now. And I honestly believe that, let's put it in perspective, that chess piece that I showed you earlier on is kind of like playing a huge game of global chess. And we hadn't really noticed in the past. It was kind of everyday life. You kind of put up with things, how things were, all these price increases and these change of rules and regulations. But I think now we're at a point where the game has now become a lot more obvious. I think comparing this to a game of chess, we're kind of at the point of, well, you imagine if we're playing white. Our white king has just been put into a check situation. It has been checked. Way back in 2009, I kind of came to the conclusion, well, not just myself, it was my partner Veronique as well. We came to the conclusion that our lives in the UK were kind of comfortable. We both had reasonably well-paid jobs, and we both had mortgages, and we had our own kind of houses, although there were mortgages on those houses. So strictly speaking, the property wasn't ours, or the properties weren't ours. But we came to the conclusion that basically we weren't entirely happy with what our life was bringing us. We understood that we could kind of muddle on, earn the money, pay the mortgage, pay the bills, buy all the materialistic stuff, and work all our lives paying for all these things, and then kind of at the end of it, what do you have left? That was the question. That was our question. Now, we came to the conclusion, after kind of discussing it and thinking about what we could do to change our lives in a really positive kind of way, but we came to the conclusion that really the most precious commodity in anyone's life ultimately is time, and what you do with that time. Yes, I mean, obviously money, lots of money, riches, wealth, etc. Monetary wealth is great. You know, you think about it, that God, you know, if I had £1 million or $1 million, all the things you could do. But when you really, really think about it, and this is quite obvious, and it's almost cliche, you've probably heard this a million times, ultimately it's time. Because when you're on your deathbed, what do you think about? Really? You're not thinking about how much money you've got in the bank, are you? No, exactly. So anyway, we kind of came to the conclusion that we wanted to, I nearly said run away. It wasn't a case of running away. It was just really going on a journey and changing our situation with the means that we had. And the decision and the plan and the goal was to basically move to France, sell both of our partly owned houses before, move to France and build our own house as cheaply as possible. And we had no delusions. We understood that building a house was a tough route to take. But we did it. We took kind of 7 years out of our lives to kind of leapfrog, shall we say, the trap that we all kind of find ourselves in. And we did it. We built this house. There, you can't see it at the moment. It's kind of finished. Well, not totally. There's a saying in France that when you build your own house, it's never finished. And it's very true. But it's perfectly livable. It's comfortable. But basically, what I didn't understand at the time is that we were kind of really prepping. Because when we came to the conclusion, or when we came to the decision to build our own house, we decided to kind of take a few extra steps to make our lives kind of a lot easier, to allow us to earn a really minimum amount of regular money or a minimum income by taking certain steps, which is why we decided to build a house out of straw, which basically gives a really excellent natural form of insulation. It makes the build quicker. I wouldn't say easier. It makes the build a lot more complicated, that's for sure. But the efforts, which we found now, were well worth it, because we've now got a house that's very easy to heat. It's very cheap to heat. It feels very nice and comfortable inside. It gives off kind of an aura, if a house could possibly project an aura. I don't know if that's technically possible, but it does. It feels good. It gives a good vibe inside the house. So that was all good. So the house was built. Absolutely fabulous. We no longer had to worry about mortgage payments, rent, etc. So it's kind of set ourselves up quite nicely, I guess, for the future. Although it did take its toll on myself physically, that's for sure. I've got a lot of aches and pains that I never had before I started building the house, but there we go. Anyway, back to what I was saying. We decided to implement certain things that we thought potentially we would save more money in the future and kind of position ourselves in a way that ultimately we'd have to rely less on everything around us, really. Make us kind of more autonomous, yeah? Make us more self-sufficient, but not completely self-sufficient, eh? Just to the point where changes in global prices wouldn't affect us quite as much. So we have a house which is extremely well insulated. It's easy to heat. We decided to try and heat our house with a wood-burning stove and not go along the lines of traditional central heating. Which worked because we've lived here now for 5 years and we've proved that we can heat the entire house quite comfortably. Some of the rooms get a little bit more chilly than we would like at times, but not dramatically so. But it does work.
Oakwood, my king of wood. Gives warmth and goodness like no other wood would.
Another couple of things that we implemented were ensuring that we had some kind of natural water source on our land, which we do. It's kind of a piped offshoot of a spring which is situated up there in the hills. So the water isn't drinkable, basically. Obviously, if you treated it, it would potentially become drinkable. But our idea was that ultimately we would have a water source that arrived on our land which was free for us to use and would enable us to do things like washing clothes and showering in and washing in and things like that, which is great. We don't use it as much as we should for the moment, but it's there. It's there waiting for us. The pipe work's all put into the house, so that's all great. Another thing that we did install as well was a dry toilet, which I made a previous video about. A composting toilet, which is work, which results in inconvenience. But it's okay. It's okay because that is kind of part of the plan, part of the journey, I guess. And it does save us a huge amount of water on a yearly basis. Well, we made our first move some 11 or 12 years ago. We started our preparations unknowingly, really. And when I look back, it's kind of like a dot to dot, really. You look at all the little dots that we've made along the way, and now I kind of look back and I understand when I join them, when I join those dots with lines, all of a sudden our journey up until this point makes complete and utter sense. And obviously I'm relieved that we began that journey. But when I read on the internet, like I did today, that there's something like a million people in the UK alone who have kind of got the choice of either eating every day or heating their house every day. It's crazy. It's crazy when we allegedly live in a civilized society and we can just allow, we can kind of sit there and allow that to happen. The amount of money that these huge global companies are making. You've got Apple. It's worth, last time I looked, I think $3 trillion. Where does it all end? The amount of profit that's been made during this COVID pandemic. Look into it. Just you've only got to just scratch the surface. Just look into it. Look on the internet. Do your own investigation. As I've said, the pandemic was real, but there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. I think for me it would have been easier if I didn't have a child. Because after all, once you're dead, obviously it doesn't affect you. You don't really care. And I'm, 53 years old? Another 20 or 30 years, fingers crossed, that'd be me. But the problem is I've got a child. I've got a daughter. And that's why I find the world so scary, because ultimately I'm going to leave my daughter in the shit, basically. We're all going to leave our children in the shit. Completely. So it's up to us at the end of the day.